So, good morning, class. So, since hindi tayo makakaroon ng synchronous class for today, I'll be asking you to listen and to watch this video presentation. The video is about our lesson number 3, which is the recording business transactions. So, diretso na tayo sa discussion. So, at the end of this lesson, you are expected to list and explain the sequential steps in the accounting cycle, understand and develop the ability to use the books of accounts, applies the rules of debits and credits in analyzing business transactions. Of course, in the previous lesson, napag-usapan natin kung paano ba or ano ba yung rules of debit and credits. We'll also prepare journal entries and post of ledger or posting to ledger accounts. Develop also your chart of accounts and prepare and explain the use of trial balance. Okay. So, ito lang. Just a brief introduction. So, this module is intended para maging familiar tayo sa accounting cycle process. Kasi basically, ang principles of accounting ay umiikot doon sa accounting cycle na yan. Okay? So, let's go directly to our lesson content, lecture notes. So here, first, accounting cycle. So pag-usapan muna po natin ang ibig sabihin ng accounting cycle. Kapag ka-cycle, we all know na this is a process. Okay? Paulit-ulit na proseso. You start, yung magsisimula ka, tapos pag nandun ka na sa end nung isang cycle, balik ulit. No? Paulit-ulit lang. Alright, so accounting cycle is a process of a complete sequence of accounting procedures in appropriate order during each accounting period. So dito pag-uusapan natin ano ba yung pagkakasunod-sunod, ano ba yung proseso na ginagawa natin sa accounting, okay? Every accounting period. So ano itong tinatawag nating accounting period? Of course, before na-mention natin na yung life ng isang business ay although ina-assume natin na tayo ay nagbi-business at sa mga susunod na taon ay patuloy yung business natin, but of course, we divide the life of the business into each accounting period so that on a timely basis, periodically, nag-create ka or nagpe-prepare ka ng financial statements para alam mo kung ano ba yung financial status ng business mo. Okay? Accounting process is a combination of series of activities that begin when a transaction takes place and ends with its inclusion in the financial statements at the end of the accounting period. So, when we define accounting last time, in-identify natin doon na the activities of the organization or activities of the business, we identify whether ito po ba ay ating um, i-record. Ano? So, ina-analyze muna natin ang transactions if it is accountable or not. And once we identified na accountable ito, so dadaan siya sa proseso hanggang sa mai-present mo siya at ma-include mo siya sa financial statements. And usually, yung financial statements na yun, ginagawa natin o piniprepare natin at least at the end of the accounting period. Okay? The sequence of accounting procedures used to record, classify, summarize accounting information is often termed as the accounting cycle. Okay? The term indicates that these procedures must be repeated continuously to enable the business to prepare new, up-to-date financial statements at reasonable intervals. So, sabi ka kanina, kagaya ng na-mention ko kanina, repeated continuously. Okay? Pagka natapos na, halimbawa, you identify that the transaction is accountable or the event is accountable hanggang sa dumaan siya ng proseso, hanggang mailagay siya or mai-include siya sa financial statement. And then, sa sunod na accounting period, same process na naman. Ganun na naman, uulitin mo na naman yung proseso. No? Magre-record, magpo-post, gagawa ng financial statements, and the like. Okay? So, for the accounting cycle, I have here 10 steps or 10 process included in the accounting cycle. Okay? So, to enumerate lang pero although hindi natin mako-cover lahat agad ngayon, but just to enumerate, first, identification of events to be recorded, transactions are recorded in a journal, journal entries are recorded to the ledger. Number 4 is you prepare the trial balance. Number 5, you prepare the worksheet, which includes your adjusting entries. Number 6, preparation of financial statements, of course. 7, you make adjustments or the adjusting entries are being journalized and posted. Number 8, closing journal entries are journalized and posted. Number 9, you prepare a post-closing trial balance. And number 10, reversing journal entries are journalized. Although number 10 is an optional step. Okay? So, iisa-isahin po natin itong accounting cycle na to. Let's proceed. Okay? First one, identification of events to be recorded. Okay po. So, when we define accounting before, kasama doon sa definition natin is yung identifying, classifying, summarizing, or identifying, measuring. Okay? So, in this case, events are analyzed to find the impact on the financial position, or to be more specific, the impacts on the accounting equation. Okay. So, yung mga nangyayari po, yung mga events and transactions na nangyayari sa isang business, ina-identify mo siya, ina-analyze mo siya, whether meron ba siyang epekto sa financial position ng business or meron ba siyang impact sa accounting equation. And of course, alam natin, ang ating accounting equation, asset is equal to liabilities plus owner's equity. Okay. In order to analyze the transactions or in order to analyze the events, we analyze them through source documents. Okay, ano yung mga sample ng documents na yun? Mga resibo, invoices, schedules, bank statements. So itong mga documents na to, sila yung nagbibigay ng evidence that an economic event has actually occurred. Okay? So for example, nag-issue ka or nag-issue ang company ng official receipt. Okay. So kung nag-issue ang company ng official receipt, ibig sabihin lang nun, merong natanggap na pera ang company. Okay? So that indicates na merong transaction na nangyari. Hindi mo man personal na nakita nagkaroon ng acceptance or ng receipt ng pera, the fact that the company issued an official receipt, it means that merong perang natanggap ang company. Okay, and that is something that, of course, dahil merong natanggap na pera, it affects our accounting equation. Thus, it is an accountable event. Okay, so in step number 1, analysis of transactions, meron tayong 4 na steps. Okay? In order to identify whether an account is accountable or not, or whether a transaction is accountable or not. First one, identify the transaction from source documents. So, yun nga, yung mga source documents na nagsiserve as evidence. Titingnan mo yung mga documents na yun. So that you will have an idea what kind of transaction has actually occurred. Okay. Once you identify na yes, there is a transaction, there is a source document supporting the transaction. Second thing is you indicate whether the accounts affected are assets, liabilities, equity, this is equity, income or expenses. So again, ano yung 5 to? Assets, liabilities, equity, income or expenses. These are the elements of your financial statements. Yan yung pinaka kumbaga broad classification of the accounts. Okay? After mong pong ma-identify kung ano ba yung mga accounts na affected, you ascertain whether each account is increased or decreased. Bakit natin kailangan malaman kung tumaas or bumaba? So that we can follow or we can apply the rules on debit and credit. It's very important po na alam mo kung ano yung nag-debit at ano yung nag-credit because this will assist you in the next step. Okay? This will assist you in the following steps in the accounting cycle. So, kumbaga, nandun pa lang po tayo sa pag-analyze ng transaction. Pero once na na-analyze mo siya correctly, madali na yung mga susunod na process. Okay? So again po, identify the transactions from source documents, indicate the accounts affected, with ascertain whether it is increased or decreased, and the rules of debit and credit. Okay? So dito po, check din natin yung source documents na tinatawag. So basically, they are the physical basis upon which business transactions are recorded. Okay, source documents are typically retained for use as evidence when auditors later review a company's financial statements and need to verify that transactions have in fact occurred. So, ang ibig pong sabihin nito, yung mga source documents po, yung mga resibo, yung mga invoices, kailangan po kinikip ng, ng company to. So, halimbawa, mayroong kang official receipt. So it indicates that there is a receipt of cash. So once na ini-record mo siya, yung resibo hindi mo siya itatapon. Why? Because you have to retain the evidence, you have to retain the source documents kasi gagamitin or baka posibleng hanapin ito ng mga auditors. Sino yung auditor? Yung nag-examine ng financial statements. No, bakit kailangan niya ng auditor? In order to verify or to confirm na meron talagang transaction na nangyaring ganun. Okay? So ano ba yung usually mga information included po sa mga source documents? So there is a description of business transaction. Of course, yung date, hindi nawawala yung date, and the amount of money na pinag-uusapan, and of course yung mga proper signatories. Okay, so dagdag pa natin, many source documents are also stamped to indicate an approval or on which to write down the current date or the accounts to be used to record the underlying transactions. Okay, pag sinabi pong source document, hindi naman nangangahulugan na dapat hard copy yan. Can also be electronic. Like halimbawa, yung mga sa biometrics ng mga empleyado. No? So kaya makakakita kayo ng mga companies na sa halip na nagsusulat ng time in, time out sa daily time record or DTR na tinatawag, yung mga empleyado, nag-ano lang ng fingerprints nila. So, biometrics yan. No? Timekeeping. Kung minsan, yung sa ngayon, ang nangyayari, online yung paglalagin ng teacher or online yung pagta-time in rather ng teacher, for example. Okay? So, ayun po. That's the first one. Again, identification of events to be recorded. Pag-usapan naman natin, so, ganito na yung nangyari. Na-identify mo na, mayroong source document na nagsusupport ng transaction. So, since the transaction is considered to be accountable, papasok na ngayon or pupunta na tayo din sa second step. Yung second step natin, transactions are recorded in the journal. Okay. So, nandito na po yung process ng pagre-record. Dito na po yung process ng debit at saka ng credit. Okay? Pero, dito na-mention po natin yung salitang journal. Ay, ano ba yung journal? Okay? Sabi dito, the journal is referred to as the book of original entry. Okay, paliwanag natin. Bakit po tinawag na book of original entry yan? Kasi, sa journal, nire-record initially ang transaction. So siya yung or sa journal unang inire-record yung transaction. That's why original entry ang tawag sa book of original entry siya. Okay? So sa journal po doon natin gagamitin yung debit and credit. Okay? Dalawa yung types of journals. Ang general journal, the basic one, the traditional, the standard one, and the special journal, which will be later discussed. Okay. So let's talk about the general journal. As mentioned, this is the most basic journal. Commonly, ang general journal, meron siyang um, minimal um, minimal spaces for dates. Siyempre, kailangan identify mo kung anong or ano yung date ng transaction. Dapat din alam natin kung ano ba yung mga account title na gagamitin natin as well as the explanation for the transaction. Okay? Yung references. At saka yung two amount columns. One for the debit and one for the credit. Okay? Ano ang purpose ng journal doon sa accounting cycle natin? The journal is for recording purposes or for recording process. Okay? Ano yung may itulong ng journal sa atin? It discloses in one place the complete effects of a transaction. Okay? Alin ang tumaas, alin ang bumaba. Okay? It provides a chronological record of transactions. So kapag sinabi natin chronological record, ibig pong sabihin sunod-sunod by date. So sa journal po natin, kailangan ma-record ang nangyari ng January 5 bago ma-record ang nangyari ng February 5. Kasi chronological record ang transactions natin. Okay? Number 3, it helps to prevent or locate errors because the debit and credit amounts for each entry can be easily compared. So sa bawat transaction po na inire-record natin, sa bawat journal na ire-record natin, kailangan ang debit at saka ang credit amounts equal. So kapag ka po ang dinebit mo ay hindi equal sa kinredit mo, obviously may error na doon. Okay? So this is an example of our general journal. As mentioned, may space for the date, may space for the account title. Alin ang account title dito? Yung cash at saka yung Castillo Capital. Portion for the explanation, meaning ini-explain mo kung ano ba yung nangyari sa transaction na to. So in this case, this is an initial investment by the owner. PR, wala pa pong laman. Later on, pag-usapan natin kung anong ilalagay dito sa PR, which is posting reference, the next step ng accounting cycle natin. Of course, the debit side and the credit side, which gives you the amount ng dinebit mo ng credit mo. So this example, kung mapapansin po natin, yung debit natin is equal sa credit. Okay? Dito meron ding nakalagay na page number. Kasi yung mga journal natin, merong mga page number yan. Importante na ma-identify natin kung ano yung page number ng ating journal. Okay? So, paano po yung process ng pag-journalize? When you enter transaction data in a journal, tawag doon journalizing. Okay? Journalizing yung term na ginagamit natin when a transaction na in-identify mo dun sa step number 1 ay ini-record mo na or inilagay mo na sa journal. So usually, paano yung process ng pag-journalize? Journalizing. Of course, you have to write the date, no? And then, yun, the debit account title, laging inuuna po, pakitandaan na sa pagre-record po natin sa journal, una nating isinusulat or una nating inilalagay ang debit na account title. So, tumaas man yan or bumaba, for as long as debited siya, yun yung una nating ilalagay. Okay. So, lagay natin yung account title and then dun sa debit portion na column dito, lalagay mo yung kanyang amount. Next, yung credit account title naman, usually pagka sinusulat natin, indented. Okay? Indented po. Ano pong ibig sabihin ng indented? Ayun, nakapasok po. Papasok. Kung ang debit po ay yung nasa extreme left, Yung credit po natin, i-move natin, ipapasok natin ng konti. Okay? So, same process po, isulat natin yung ating credit account title, and then dun sa credit column ng money column, sulat natin yung amount. Okay? And then, a brief explanation of the transaction. So, yun nga kanina, yung initial investment. And every time po magkakaroon ka ng journal entries, you put a space between journal entries. So, yung first entry natin, so dito, halimbawa, mag-space ka muna dito bago ka magsulat nung second entry. Okay? Yung column na PR, again nga po, yung posting reference natin, blanco muna siya. When you prepare the journal entry, blanco muna yon. Muna. Ano? Bakit? Kasi kapag pag tinransfer mo na siya, pag yung journal entry ay tinransfer mo na dun sa ledger accounts, which will be discussed later on, dun ka lang babalik ulit at lalagyan mo ng details, yung posting reference natin. Okay? In terms of entry naman, meron tayong dalawang types of entry. Yung simple entry at saka compound entry. Okay? Paano po natin pag-differentiate ng dalawa? A simple entry, only two accounts are affected. No? One is debited and the other one is credited. Yung sample natin kanina, yung debit cash and credit Castillo Capital for 411,000, that is an example of simple entry. Two accounts are affected. However, meron po tayong mga transactions na nagre-require ng more than two accounts. So, kapag 3 or more accounts na yung i-journal entry natin, the entry is known to be compound entry. Okay? Ano yung sample ng compound entry? Ano pong transaction ang posibleng mangyari na apektado ay more than two accounts? So, halimbawa, bumili tayo ng inventories. Okay? Bumili tayo ng machines ng company. Siyempre, yung machines, medyo ang value niyan, medyo malaki yung value. So, anong ginawa? Anong ginawa natin? We purchase the machine, we give down payment, and the balance, for example, we give 20% down payment. And yung balance na 80%, inutang natin. Okay? So, dun sa transaction na yun, merong tatlong accounts ang affected. First, nakatanggap tayo ng machine. Okay? Magkano yung value ng machine na ilalagay natin? The entire value, which is 100%. Okay? So, let us assume that's 100,000. So, that is one account, machine. Second account affected, since nagbayad tayo ng down payment na 20%, equivalent to 20,000, nabawasan yung ating cash na 20,000. Okay? And the third one, since meron tayong balance, no? May 80,000 tayong inutang, apektado yung ating accounts payable. So in that case, yung entry mo doon, yung machine mo naka-debit ng 100,000, yung cash mo naka-credit ng 20,000, yung accounts payable mo naka-credit ng 80,000. So there are 3 accounts affected in the journal entry. Isa lang yung transaction, pero 3 accounts ang affected. When you make the journal entry, the kind of journal entry that you are making is referred to as compound entry. Okay? Next. Number 3 step in the accounting cycle, journal entries are posted to the ledger. Okay po. So, balikan lang natin ng konti yung steps natin. Na-identify mo na ng transactions ay accountable kasi na-analyze mo na yung mga documents. Okay? Number 2, since accountable yan, ini-record mo na ngayon sa journal entry. Okay? As journal entry. So, journal, considered as the book of original entry. So what happened in step number 3 is that yung journal entries mo, pinost mo sa ledger. Sino ba tong si ledger? Ano ba itong si ledger? The ledger is also called the book of final entry because all the balances in the ledger are used in the preparation of financial statements. Okay, so yung kwento po natin mula sa book of original entry, which is the journal, ipopost mo ngayon siya sa ledger, which is the book of final entry. Okay? This is also referred to as the T account because the basic form of a ledger is like the letter T. So, in the previous lesson, napag-usapan naman natin ano yung itsura ng T accounts and how do we enter information in a T account. So, ganun po yung concept ng ledger natin. Okay? In terms of kinds ng ledger, katulad lang din siya ng journal, meron siyang general, at meron siyang subsidiary. Dalawa din yung kinds ng ledgers natin. Okay? So, let's have here the general ledger muna po. So, commonly referred by accounting professionals as GL. So, is a grouping of all accounts used in the preparation of financial statements. Tinatawag ang general ledger na controlling account because it controls. Why? In the sense that it summarizes all the activities that have taken as recorded in subsidiary ledger. So let's have an example of a general journal. Ang format ng journal ng general ledger, ang format ng general ledger ay iba-iba. Merong style T account. Okay? Meron naman ganito, running balance. Okay? Yung T account kasi napag-usapan na natin before, yung itsura ng T account. So, dito naman, ito yung minsan ginagamit din po ng iba. So, here, naka-identify anong account ba yung pinag-uusapan natin, anong account title. And then, yung account title na to, merong corresponding account number. So, kumbaga, ito yung pinaka-ID number ng account. Specific. Kung 101 yan, si cash yan. Okay? So, nakalagay din dito, meron din room for the date. Of course, yung item, ano ba yung description ng nangyari. JR stands for the journal reference. Okay? So, ano pong inilalagay dito? Anong nilalagay sa JR natin? Saan nanggaling journal yung pinost natin? Remember, when we discussed the journal, meron part yung journal na page number. Okay? So, kapag pinost na po natin siya, kung halimbawa sa page number 1 ang galing yung journal na ipopost natin sa ledger, di page 1 ang ilalagay natin dito. General journal page 1. Okay? Then, identify natin, naka-debit po ba yung cash natin or credit? And then, of course, the balance. Paano malalaman yung balance? Siyempre, kung debit yan, i-add mo yan. Kung credit yan, ibabawas mo. Okay? So, basically, yun na yung mga nasabi ko. Ito na yun. Inisa-isa lang natin dito. Okay? Accounts in the general ledger are classified into two general groups. Meron kang balance sheet accounts or meron kang income statement accounts. Okay? Yung balance sheet accounts ay tinatawag din na permanent or real accounts. Okay? Bakit po siya tinawag na permanent or real accounts? Kasi yan, kung ano yung ni-record mo dyan, kung ano yung pinresent mo sa financial statements, dinadagdagan mo na lang yan. Binabawasan mo na lang yan sa mga susunod na taon. Pero yung income statement or temporary accounts, examples nila yung income and expenses. Kaya siya tinawag na temporary or nominal accounts kasi they are being gathered for a particular accounting period. Okay? So, pag natapos na yung accounting period, yung balance nila, tina-transfer mo sa permanent account. So, halimbawa, yung income mo, income mo lang para sa isang taon ang pinag-uusapan. Halimbawa po, ang income mo sa 2019 ay 100,000. So, yung 100,000, pang 2019 lang yun. Pag nagsimula na yung 2020, panibagong period na yun. So, zero na ulit yung income. Bakit? Kasi yung 100,000 na income mo ng 2019, ililipat mo na or ita-transfer mo na siya sa permanent account. So that pag nagsimula ang 2020, January 1, 2020, the balance of your income account is zero. Which is different dito sa permanent or real account. Kasi halimbawa, assets yung pinag-uusapan natin. Example ng asset ay cash. Okay? So, kung ang cash nung 2019, natapos yung 2019 na ang cash mo ay 70,000, magsisimula ang 2020 na ang cash mo ay 70,000. Hindi siya magiging zero. Okay? Hindi mo siya ibabalik sa zero. Kasi permanent account sila. So, nadadagdagan, nababawasan lang sila habang dumadagdag yung year. Unlike yung temporary or nominal accounts, pag natapos yung taon, i-zero out mo siya. Well, all of this will be, mas maiintindihan kapag nasa problem na tayo. Okay? Chart of accounts. So, ito naman, defined lang as a list of account names. So, depende po sa company, hindi po uniform ang chart of accounts na ginagamit ng lahat ng company. Depende sa industry na kinabibilangan mo. Iba ang chart of accounts ng hospital, iba ang chart of accounts ng mga schools. They have account title na common to them, pero hindi lahat ng accounts nila ay pare-parehas. So, dito lang po, pakita na lang natin yung sample ng chart of accounts natin. So, yun, usually, assets talaga yung nauuna. Starts with 100 or 1, and then followed by liabilities, followed by the shareholders' equity or the owner's equity, followed by the revenues, expenses, yan. So, yan po. Ito yung mga sample ng accounts natin. Okay? So, yung process po ng posting, pag-usapan natin yung process ng posting. This is actually the step number 3. Pag sinabi nating posting, transferring the amounts from the journal to the appropriate accounts in the ledger. So, paano po nagta-transfer? Ito, word lang to. Okay, once na mag-meet tayo, the next meeting, bigyan natin or next synchronous meeting, bigyan natin ng problem. Sample, illustration ito. Okay? Pero the steps in posting, first, you transfer the date. So, yung sa journal, may date sa journal, salin mo lang, lipat mo lang, gayahin mo lang yung date na nasa journal, lagay mo lang din sa date na nasa ledger. No? And then, yung page number na nasa journal, yung pinakita natin kanina, ilalagay mo lang yun sa journal reference column ng ledger. Okay? Tapos, kung debit figure siya na nasa journal, lagay mo lang din siya sa debit figure na nasa ledger. Kung credit, sa journal, credit din sa ledger. Okay. Now, eto, akyat lang natin ng konti. So, ito yun, di ba? Transfer the date. So, kung ano yung date na nasa journal, lagay mo lang dito. Item, ganyan. Dito sa journal reference, ito yung page number. Now, kapag katapos mo na to, babalik ka ngayon kay journal. Ilalagay mo ngayon yung account number. Ito, yung 101. Saan mo siya ilalagay? Akyat ulit tayo ng konti. Saan mo siya ilalagay? Dito po, sa posting reference. Okay? Kaya kanina, blanco pa to. Bablanko natin to kanina. Nung nag-journal tayo, nakablanko pa siya. Bakit? Saka lang natin lalagyan yan kapag na i-post na natin. No? So, cash is account number 101. So, lalagay mo lang ito 101. So, yun lang po yung process ng posting. Yeah, basically, ayun yung posting natin. So, after ma-post po tayo, anong ginagawa natin sa ledger accounts after posting? Sa end ng accounting period, yung lahat ng debit tsaka yung lahat ng credit i-identify natin. No? So, kukuhain natin yung balance ng bawat accounts. Okay. Paano kinukuha yung balance? Footing tayo. When you say footing, add natin lahat ng debit at saka ng credit. No? Kung mas malaki yung debit side kasi sa credit side, then the account has a debit balance. Kabaliktaran naman kapag mas malaki yung credit side kasi sa debit side, the account has a credit balance. Okay? So, ibig pong sabihin, at the end of the accounting period, ma-identify natin ilan or magkano ang balanse ng bawat ledger accounts. Bakit siya mahalagang i-identify? Kasi gagamitin mo siya sa pagpiprepare ng trial balance. Okay? But for this video, cut muna natin doon sa hanggang third ano muna tayo. Hanggang third steps muna tayo. Third step muna tayo. So yon, identification ng events to be recorded, transactions are recorded in a journal entries are recorded to the ledger. Huh? So next video na po natin pag-usapan yung preparation ng trial balance at saka yung mga susunod. Okay po, i-master muna natin yung journal entry tsaka ledger. So, yun muna po yung discussion natin for this video. You are encouraged to post your comments or your questions sa ating LMS so that i-address natin yung mga clarifications na yan. Okay, so you are expected to finish this video and then remaining time is to be used to post your 3-2-1 in our Google Classroom. Okay, so thank you for listening.